Welcome to the weekly water outlook for the Midwest for August 18th, 2013. It's been a very quiet week over a large part of the Midwest. Let's start off by taking a look at the number of rain days over the last 7 days. Now this dark area of brown here, this is 0, so right away we have a completely dry week over most of this area right here, a large part of this area right here, and even in other areas here, just maybe 1 day or so of rain. So it's definitely been a very quiet week with very little rain across the Midwest. If we look at the jet stream, we see the jet stream is generally to the north over the very northern tier of the U.S. bordering Canada. We've had an area of low pressure that is cut off. But what we need to watch is this area of high pressure here. This area of high pressure is going to be building and then pulling off to the east. And that's going to be the factor that impacts our weather this week and most likely the next 2 weeks. So keep an eye on that area of high pressure. I'll be talking about that in just a moment. I did want to mention that the tropics, there have been a few things to look at. There was some tropical moisture over the Gulf of Mexico, and that's not really doing too much anymore. It's sort of falling apart. Aaron was a tropical storm for a while, and now that's just a tropical depression. There's some activity, but really it looks quiet. It looks like it's coming into some unfavorable area, and it's really not developing. Now, I did want to show you and keep track of this as we go through later August and into September, the steering flow. And right now, this area of high, this Bermuda high, any systems that develop will either curve before it gets to the U.S., or else it'll follow this path right along the southern edge of this high. And it very well could come into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we're going to have to keep an eye on that, but right now I don't see anything that would really bring it into the area. Again, there's something inhibiting development at the current time. So if we look at rainfall over the last 7 days, we see a pretty dry pattern. Large parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, parts of eastern Iowa, northern parts of Illinois, no rain at all. Matter of fact, even areas that have been wet, Ohio's beginning to get quite dry in the short term. And even areas that receive some rain, that area blue, that's light rain. So really very little significant rain. The only area that received significant rain last week was right in this axis right here. And that was actually a very small area, nothing all that much. So really this entire area right here, for the most part, very little or no rain over the last week. So very, very dry, and you can see that in percents of normal. Red is 0% of normal. Any shade of red is 25% of normal. That was the story last week. Very dry, very little rain. Now let's go back and look at the bigger trends. I think this is very interesting, especially with agricultural interests needing rain. And I did a study. I'll put some information out on this on how dry it's been in Iowa and surrounding states. We're looking at a top 10 driest period in July, and that trend is continuing. And this is a 30-day percent of normal. And that dark red over a 30-day period is really showing negative or dry soil moisture anomalies. Even the areas of moderate red are very dry. So we've really looked at a 30-day period in most of the Midwest, ranging from dry to very dry, with some exceptions of western parts of South Dakota and parts of Kansas. And we can see that trend even going past 60 days. It's centered over Iowa, the driest conditions. So this is a long-term 60 days. So when we're looking at these type of anomalies for 60 days, we're looking at unusually dry conditions, very dry conditions. But we can see even other areas here are trending towards dry. So that has been the trend that developed in July, continues now into August, this unusually dry weather. I did want to mention that on the drought monitor, there's been some expansion. It's gone from D0 to D1 now in Iowa. That's expected. And then it's expanded a bit over into Illinois. So we are seeing some expansion of the drought monitor and also a bit of intensification as well. Now, if we look at the average temperature anomaly here, what we see here in blue is that temperatures have been below normal, and in some cases well below normal so far in August, the 1st to the 17th. The entire Midwest has had below normal temperatures, with the upper Midwest extremely so. And that's going to change with that high pushing off to the east over the next 2 weeks. From a temperature standpoint, we are going to be changing this persistent cool temperature that we've had. Now, I wanted to talk about the jet stream here. Blue is early this week. And then as we get later in this week, what we really see is that area of high pressure shifts from the western part in the Rockies area over towards right in the middle of the country, pretty much near Kansas City. And that's going to keep things dry, and that's also going to have significant warming over the middle part of the nation. This area of low pressure that has brought us the cooler temperatures is also going to be drifting off to the east with perhaps some digging of this trough by next week. But the real trend, I think, for the Midwest is going to be this area of high pressure and then
Call from Walgreens Playfield.
Okay, let's take a look at the jet stream here. And what we see is the current jet stream is in blue. That's early this week. And what we're going to see throughout the week is this area of high pressure is going to develop. It's going to intensify and it's going to move to the east. Eventually, it's going to be centered over Kansas City, and that's going to bring drying temperatures or warming temperatures and dry conditions over most of the Midwest. Now, the only chance of some rain is going to be right with this jet stream over Minnesota, and there could be some rain in that region. And this area of low pressure will be moving off to the east, and as this low moves off to the east, this trough will dig, and cooler air could be over the northeast U.S., but I really think the story is going to be this ridge of high pressure over the middle part of the nation, and that is what's going to cause warming temperatures for our region. So here's the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days, and you can see that area of precipitation pretty much centered over Minnesota into Wisconsin, and that's going to be where the jet stream is. Remember I said the jet stream sort of flowing right in here? South of the jet stream, pretty dry. No rain whatsoever. Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, southern Iowa, parts of Nebraska, no rain. And this is actually pretty light as well, eastward into Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio. So that's this week. Now, if we go out and look a little bit further out, this is through the end of the month of August into early September. The first image here is the week of 18th through the 25th, and you can see, generally speaking, just really light amounts of rain. It looks like it's going to be a quiet week this week with dry weather. Even in the area where there's some light precipitation, this looks like it's not much at all. And then we get into week 2, not much change. That high pressure aloft is still in the area, and it looks like a very big area of dry weather, or at least light precipitation over this area. No signs of a tropical activity, so it really looks like we're going through, with some minor exceptions, a 2-week period of pretty quiet weather, warming temperatures, and light precipitation. As far as soil moisture goes, these are current conditions. Browns and oranges are dry soils. Green are wet. This area has sort of set up earlier this summer in June and July. This has been the area that has been some welcome rainfall through the summer. But if we look at the forecast, we see that almost the entire Midwest, the forecast is for drying soils, significantly drying in this medium range right here. And the only area where there could be some wetting of soils is that band of precipitation I mentioned in Minnesota. Well, here are your takeaway points. This ridge will be building into the Midwest. That's going to result in below normal precipitation and temperatures rising to above normal levels. It's going to continue to dry out soils, expand the drought. There's a better chance of rain in Minnesota where there could be some relief. Unfortunately, this pattern looks like it's going to continue at least the next 2 weeks for the most part. Now this week I will be issuing some updates on agriculture. And then on Thursday, I will be having the long-range outlook where I'll look through the rest of the summer, the outlook. Thanks for listening to today's briefing, and I will be talking with you again soon.